You're listening to the Psychedelic Invest Podcast, where we speak with founders, CEOs, investors, advisors, experts, and thought leaders in the brave new world of psychedelics and entheogenic medicines. Brought to you by Psychedelic Invest, bringing you unparalleled psychedelic investing data and analysis. Psychedelic Invest is the industry's leading resource for those looking to invest in the burgeoning psychedelic industry. For more information and to access all of the podcast episodes, check out our website at psychedelicinvest.com/podcast. And now, here's the host of the Psychedelic Invest Podcast, Bruce Eckfeld.
Welcome, everyone. This is the Psychedelic Invest Podcast. I'm Bruce Eckfeld. I'm your host. Our guest today is Itzhak Beery. He is a shamanistic author, teacher, healer, public speaker. We're going to talk to him about the world of psychedelics and specifically the traditional or shamanic approach to psychedelics and really kind of understanding the legacy and the history, tradition we have around using psychedelics, particularly around plant medicines, and really kind of have a conversation about where we are in the world of psychedelics these days. Obviously, the last 10, 15 years, there's been a lot of interest and a lot of kind of development and really embracing of some of the psychedelic medicines for all sorts of purposes. And it's very kind of multifaceted. And our conversation today is really just kind of understanding, how does the history and the legacy connect with what's going on today? And how do we really help make sure that we're using the medicine, these molecules, these plants to do good in the world and hopefully continue some of the traditions and work that's been done in a meaningful way and integrate it. Bring it into modern society and what that means and what are the challenges and what are the opportunities. So excited for this conversation, excited to kind of dig into this and hopefully have some meaningful discussion around some of these topics, which I know are important to a lot of people. So with that, Itzhak, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, thank you for being here. Before we kind of dive into what's going on today, because I know there's a lot going on today, why don't we just get a little bit of background, how you got into this work, how this sort of came into your world and what it means to you, and then we can kind of talk about what's going on and how you're kind of viewing some of the activities and how psychedelics have been developing. So give us the backstory. How did you get into this?
Well, before I got into it, I was an advertising man in New York City. Mm-hmm. And sometimes around my midlife, around 40, I got very restless. I didn't understand what it's all about. I got most of the awards in advertising. I've done enough work to feel good about what I've done, but I really didn't feel good about where I am in the world. I didn't know what my mission or why I'm here. Yeah. So I happened to go to Hawaii, and on the way, I stopped in a bookstore, Barnes & Noble, and I got a book by Hank Wasselman, Spirit Walker, and that kind of like opened my eyes to this world of shamanism because I did not hear about shamanism before that. That was in 1995. Mm-hmm. And in the end of the book, which is, I think everybody should read that because it's really about global warming and climate crisis that we are in now. He was mentioning a workshop on shamanism that he took with Michael Harner. And I was really taken by it. And then when I came back to New York from Hawaii, Michael was teaching here in New York. So I ended up going to that workshop. That opened my eyes to the world of visions, or what we call shamanic visioning. And I was so surprised that the visions that I have seen in that workshop really meant a lot to the people who I journey for. And I was taken. I mean, I was not so many years ago that people really, the word shaman was like a bad word of crazy people. And I started to kind of like integrate the shamanic work with my advertising work and slowly came out to my clients. And of course, I lost a few clients and some of the clients really liked it and some people really did not like it. And then in 97, I went on a trip to Ecuador with a guy named John Perkins. You might have heard of him. Yep. And he mentioned that we're going to be doing some tea or taking some tea. Okay. At that time, it wasn't called ayahuasca, it was natem. And I was not really prepared for it. Didn't know what
Interesting.
shamanism
Yeah.
or what ayahuasca was. But we did 2 ceremonies there, and I had incredible visions, which I wrote about it in my books. And it really changed the way I saw the world. I could not understand how the visions that I've seen could be manifest in the physical world.
Yeah.
And part of what I went through at that time was a commitment that I made to some spirit in the jungle to do this work to help preserve the Amazon and the people who live there and their tradition as a way to preserve our society. And so I got that message, but I didn't know how to manifest that in our reality. And it took me quite a few years to bring it together.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of, I'm still working on the same mission, is how to bring indigenous world wisdom into the modern society to be able to have our society sustain itself. And then so I started the New York Shaman. I founded the New York Shamanic Circle and Shaman Portal, and then I did other projects. And I got really involved in it. And of course, I left my advertising career altogether, and I do that now full time.
Yeah. And I'm curious, just maybe kind of definitions or meanings around some of these things. When we talk about shaman, a shaman or shamanistic, I guess connected or specifically connected, is this to psychedelics versus just a more general sense of helping someone with visioning and kind of tapping into kind of otherworldly visions and experiences? What's your kind of working definition around shaman?
Well, I think that there's a little confusion about the word shaman and psychedelic, because it's not necessarily all the same. Different traditions have different way of practicing shamanism. So there are very many cultures who don't use psychedelic. They use the power of the visioning. My teacher, who is from the high Andes of Ecuador, always warned me against using ayahuasca or any other psychedelic because it says that it changes the DNA of the brain, and it is really work for lazy people who doesn't want to do organic visioning. It works to spirit independently instead of with the aids of the plant medicine.
Yeah.
So I did the plant medicine in spite of his warning, and I do that almost every year. But so there's many different aspects. I think that what common to all shamans is the ability to vision and to take that vision and bring them into the world. Is like the Shwar says, that the world is as we dream it. So we have to take the visions that we experience in the visioning world or in the other world and bring them into manifestation in this world to make this world more harmonious and more balanced for all of us.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you were, I guess I'll call it a midlife crisis. I don't know if you refer to it as a midlife crisis, but you're going in mid 40s, questioning your role and kind of future and purpose and stuff. I guess, did you feel like you just kind of found the answer when you started doing this work, or was this more of like a path that helped you start exploring that? I'm curious how like how transformational was that moment, and how did it actually impact your kind of view of yourself and your purpose in the world?
Well, for me, it was more of a process. I did not, ayahuasca was not very well known at that time. It was only for very strange people. So it took me a while to really accept that part of myself. And also my family was very upset about that because they thought that I'm a drug addict, and they didn't want me to pursue these things. And I didn't know. I didn't have the answer to that because I just felt a calling. I didn't know where it's going to lead me at all. It was just a beginning of a path where you don't see the end of it, and there is really no end to it. But at that time, I was totally in the dark about that. It was just revealed itself as I went along, as I did more shamanic work, more traditional one, and more plant medicine work.
Mm-hmm. And the plant medicine, we mentioned ayahuasca here. What else do you kind of put into the category of plant medicines that are used in a shamanic process?
Well, there's plethora of different different plants that shamans use. They use datura, they use wachuma, they use rapé, they use all kind of different elements to elevate themselves to or to speak to spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily just ayahuasca, and also, I was really lucky to experience different, what we call ayahuasca, in a few different traditions, and each one of them is very different or practiced differently and have different goals too. For instance, when you talk about people in the Sarayaco area, in the Quichua of the Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
their purpose for their use of ayahuasca is really not for the visioning part. It's more about cleaning the body to change the acidity of the digestive system and remove blockages, emotional and physical blockages from our body.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of that is not to see, but more to open your heart to the sublime being of the universe, or to weave the string of what we call the matrix, so we can reconnect to the larger matrix of the universe. It's not about visioning. And the same thing when you do your hair with the psychopai or sequoia. The purpose of their plant medicine is more about health. It's more about, again, changing the pH in your stomach, creating more holistic environment. And they do ceremonies, awakening ceremony or renewal ceremonies before the ayahuasca ceremony or yahe ceremonies, in order to remove all those blockages. So when you are doing the yahe ceremony, you are connected to the sublime being, or to the spirit of the universe, or the matrix of the universe. So it's really not about visioning. It's about you surrendering, you communicating to the spirit, or they call it the sublime being, to reconnect with them, to feel one with the universe. And that's the most important part, is to be one with the forest, one with the animals, one with the nature and the elements. That's where you truly go into balance and harmony in your life.
Yeah. And I guess for, cultures that have been using this for quite some period of time, and thousands of years, and in some cases here, how would you say they use it, or how do they view it? Is this these big kind of transformational events, rites of passage kind of things? Is this kind of, more normal course of health and mental well-being? Like how have these medicines been used, or how has sort of shamanic work been used inside indigenous cultures?
So the way I understood it is that in old tradition, or the ancient traditions, the client never used ayahuasca.
Mm-hmm.
The shaman used the ayahuasca in order for him or her, mostly him, to go into the spirit world and penetrate into the physical body of the client, the physical, emotional, and spiritual bodies of the client, and remove the poison arrows or the negative energy or blockage that the client has. So it was mostly the people who drank yahe, ayahuasca, netem, anyway name you want to call it. The shamans use that, not the client. What happened with our ayahuasca revolution is that more of the client now drink the ayahuasca. The client means people who are novices. And it's only used by the client in order for them to clear their health issues.
Okay.
It's very different than what we are experiencing now, where everybody who's not prepared, don't have the knowledge about working with spirit, come to the Amazon or go to a basement in Brooklyn and drink ayahuasca and see visions. Now, one of the things that is very important also to understand, that in the ancient tradition, society understood the meaning and the symbols and the metaphors, and the language of shamanism, or the language of spirit. What happened in our popular culture now is people are taking it as a challenge, as an initiation form, not as a way to communicate with spirit. And that could create, many times people who are losing their mind, they become paranoid, they become unstable, they don't understand how spirits speak to them and what they said to them. A lot of my work is working with people who are coming back from Peru and other places like that, or in basement in wherever they are, to untangle them, to bring them back to reality. That is very important for role of the shaman, is to give the tools to understand the visions of to have an integration of the visions into our modern life.
Yeah. I guess what's your kind of assessment of the rise of, psychedelics, plant medicine being used in, these kind of, I guess, I don't quite say it without making a judgment call on it. I guess the rise for folks that are looking for insight, for vision, for connecting with a higher purpose, connecting with a bigger source, right? I mean, there's lots of kind of, I think, reasons people kind of initially seek these things out, but say over the last 15, 20 years, when this stuff has become, I don't want to say necessarily popular, but increasing sort of general interest and use and popularity among certain groups to engage in psychedelics and plant medicine. I mean, I guess what's your kind of pro con? What do you see that's been going that is helpful around it, and what do you see as being problematic?
I think that if people wants to do that, plant medicine, they need to learn the language of shamanism. They need to spend some time understanding what is the role of the shamans, what are spirit, what is energies, to understand the meaning of colors, the vibrations of colors, the meaning of what animals they see, what is the symbols and metaphors. So they need to come prepared. And the role of the people the ayahuasqueros, is to not just to be a bartender and give the drink, but to be able to navigate the visions and the experiences that those people who are coming to them, and sometimes prevent or do healing as they do the visioning. I'm sure you encounter many very bad experiences during the sessions.
Yeah.
So I think that a more of education, more of personal experience with working with spirit or visioning in any kind of form before you do the ayahuasca, not to go there cold. It is similarly like if you go to, let's say, Sweden, and you want and you see stuff that's happening there without the ability to speak the language, you would not be able to understand fully what are they talking to you, right? Mm-hmm. You might understand by body language or by some kind of understanding, but you need to learn the language of shamanism. You need to learn the language of spirit. You have to have that experience before you do that. And in indigenous cultures, children as young as 8, or sometimes even before, they give in ayahuasca. Mm-hmm. They give them in small amounts so they can start connecting to spirit, to understand that. So as they grow old, the schism between the two worlds is not so big. They are unifying the two worlds together. And that's really what happened to me. I went to cold. I didn't know what ayahuasca was. And it took me months, 8 months. I was so depressed. I could not understand how the spirit world is influencing the physical world.
Yeah.
And so that I think that is very important for anybody who is taking groups for ayahuasca or providing the ceremony, to really work on it before and at the very end have sessions of integration. That's not happening in the Sequoia, for instance. What they do is they allow each person to go through their own experience. But those you're speaking to people who already speaking the language of shamanism, they speak the language of the Amazon or the forest.
Yeah, I always say it's It's like being curious about getting into running and deciding to do a 5-hour marathon as your first experience.
Yes.
It is going to be tough, and you're going to potentially be in a lot of pain and have to recover from that for quite some time if you're not used to that kind of the experience and that kind of effort. What are some of the things people can do? I mean, other than kind of low levels of some of this plant medicine, is there? I mean, just kind of fundamental work someone can do around getting in touch with themselves, their connection to, higher power, spirit world, breath work, right? Like, are there other things or ways that someone could sort of start to get into this space and, learn a little bit, experiment a little bit, help them with some navigation before they really get involved in some of the more intense plant medicines?
Well, today there are so many different modalities and so many teachers. They're providing so many different workshops about visioning and shamanic on a shamanic path in, like you said, breath work and other ways, that I think that if you are interested in any kind of plant medicine, and especially when you go, like if you start, let's say, with Bachuma or San Pedro, it's a little easier on your system.
Mm-hmm.
But to jump into ayahuasca without preparation, I think that that's irresponsible. So you want to take steps. You want to do visioning or shamanic journeys. Speak to spirits. Speak to your power animal. Understand the symbolism of what you see. And there is a lot of information that also on the internet today that you can read about that. But to jump into ayahuasca is, I think, that is a little bit irresponsible. I hope that people will do that to prepare themselves when they go into this initiation.
Yeah. I certainly have found those that have done the groundwork and the preparation are much more likely to have a positive kind of outcome or experience, and those that do not, more likely or higher likelihood that they're going to have either a challenging experience or an experience that take them a while to figure out really how to integrate and apply.
I want to say also that in the ayahuasca community, there is a sense that they are competing by how many times you've done the ceremony.
Yes.
And I think that is totally the wrong approach to that. Ayahuasca speaks to us in language that require us to manifest the visions that we see into reality. And it takes time.
Yeah.
And it takes concentration. And it takes commitment. And if you are doing it 80 times every other weekend and every other month, you don't have the time. And in many ways, you are wasting what spirit talked to you. And I think that kind of sport-like approach is totally the wrong one, and it's perpetrated by the people who are, I call them, the ayahuasca bartenders. People who go to the Amazon and they have great experiences, and they found their calling, and without years of preparation, they start to offering this medicine without the ability to do healing work. Many of the ceremonies are not just the ceremonies. They do healing work while the ceremonies happen or right after. I don't know if you have experienced that. But that removal of that negative energy, or working with the leaves and the aqua florida and the others, it's very important to bring back a person into reality. So I think that we need to be a lot more responsible with the way we are using plant medicine, and really listen very intently to what spirit are telling us, and not dismiss it, continue to work on it, and not ask for more cups and more cups and more cups. And I also want to say something about the cups, because we have to, people who have done this work really have to ask themselves, especially in the Western world, Europe and America and other places like that, where is the money go to? How much each cup actually costs? And what's the money that we are spending drinking this ayahuasca does to the communities, to the ancient community, the indigenous communities, because I think that many of the people who are providing these services are coming back with many thousands of dollars back to the Amazon. And instead of investing it in the community, they take it to themselves. And that ruins the infrastructure or the social economic of the tribe, which is a sharing economy. It's very important to understand that every cup you drink have a lingering effect on the community where the ayahuasca come from.
Yeah.
And I have witnessed many times that shamans who came here from the Amazon and they come back, instead of investing it back in the community or sharing it with their community, they buy cows, they cut the forest. They don't use it in the intention that we have. So there's two sides to it. I think that we have to make sure that the people who provide ayahuasca are taking responsibility for that.
Yeah. In terms of the people that you find today that are either, going to these tools, going to this medicine, going to this practice, I guess, what do you see them going to it for, right? Some of this feels like it's kind of healing, and I know there's been a lot of work with folks that have various forms of trauma and mental health issues. Then there's also, it seems like, this camp which is more about helping improve performance or kind of get to the next level or help figure out the next stage or kind of level of life. I guess, where do you see this most kind of impactful, or where it can help the most, or do you see a difference between those?
There is no doubt that ayahuasca is a healing plant, it does work, heal traumas and all the experiences, all the emotional experiences. Absolutely. And I'm all for it. I'm not quite sure where it's going. Sometimes I have a feeling that people are taking it as a step of initiation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they take it as a sport because somebody else has done it. They become famous. There are so many different, and I know that it comes from a feeling that of something is missing in their life. That's what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good thing. But where I wish it's going to go to is that once you do the ceremonies and you understand and start to talk that language, you would want to go deeper. You want to go into more of the essence of shamanism, or essence of that, and not just the plant medicine. And I see quite a lot of people who done some plant medicine, and after a while they are asking the bigger questions. What is my life purpose? How do I speak to spirit? How can I integrate it into my life? And then they're coming back into more of a traditional role of the shaman, which is, I think that it's also important to talk about. The role of the shaman is not just to give ayahuasca.
Yeah.
The role of the shaman is to be the firekeeper of the society, to hold space for other people to make their dreams come true, and to hold space for people to live life better, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I mean, that's the root of the name shaman in the Tungus tribe, with the firekeeper. So it's more about, that's the way I see it, that once you have that realization that you are part of the matrix, that you are part of the cosmos, how do you take an active role in making sure that the community around you, your family, your children, your family, your village, your town, the world, the environment, are living life in more balance?
Itzhak, this has been a pleasure. If people want to find out more about you, about shamanistic work, about the work that you do, what's the best way to get that information?
They can go to my website. It's my name, itzhakbeery.com.
I'll make sure that the link is in the show notes. This has been a pleasure. I really appreciate your time today. I really appreciate your insights. I really hope that everyone gets a chance to listen to this and kind of understand really what the history is, where we came from in terms of plant medicine and some of these psychedelics, and things we need to be understanding of, aware of as we develop the space, and hopefully in a positive way as things evolve in this world. So I appreciate your time today.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Psychedelic Invest Podcast. If you liked this episode, please be sure to leave a 5-star rating and leave us a review. You can find more episodes on all the major podcasting platforms and our website at psychedelicinvest.com/podcast.